Two goals in this session. The first one, I want to show you how you can consume, or another name for it is call a web API from JavaScript on the client side. Yeah, that's the first goal. Just to get you the big picture. Then I will come back next time and review the whole cycle. Second goal, if I want to show you how can I update the page using the JSON coming from the web API call. I want to use the JSON coming from the web API call to update the page using, again, JavaScript on the client side. So these guys here, they put up a very simple API that gives you the list of countries. So if you go to their website, basically you can go here and go all. If you go to this URL, it will give you the list of countries in the world in JSON format. That's what this API is doing. Okay. There is even a more interesting one here, which is a region. If you use this URL, it will give you the countries per region. This is for Europe. This is for Africa. Yep. Okay. Now, what we want to do, we want to call this API and use it in our web page, basically to build a web page where I can select a region and get the countries of that region. Yes? Okay, so let's do it together super quickly. So in here, I will create a new HTML page. I will call it countries. I will just put 0 here to be on the top, so it's easy to find. So here are countries, and then basically go here, countries. And then what I will do here, I will allow the user to select one of the regions. What are the regions they have in this API? Those are how many regions? 5 regions. Yes? So I basically want the user to be able to select one of these regions. So which HTML element I should use? Select. Okay, so I will go ahead and do select. Okay, and then basically an option for each of these guys. So there's an option, and basically an option for Africa. So the value will be Africa lowercase, and what the user will see will be Africa. So let me just copy this. Another. Okay, Americas. And then one for Asia, super quick here. Another one for Europe. And another one for this.
This is the rare one you never see.
Yes, too far. Okay, now I also want to put one that is empty because I don't want to force the user to select anyone. The default is empty. Okay, so if I view this one, you see here, these are my choices. So what's my next goal now? What is my next goal?
Provide another selector for country.
Yes, so whenever the region changes, by the way, let me just put this one here. Just put here the region. So whenever the region change, I want to go to that web API and fetch the region of the selected country. The countries of the selected region. Fetch the countries of the selected regions and display the countries in the page. Okay? Okay, so first, what I will do is, how do I do this? How do I achieve this? What is the idea here? How do I achieve this? The goal is clear, yes? I want to watch this select element. Whenever the region change, I want to go ahead to the web API, fetch the countries and update the page. That's my goal. So how do I achieve this? So what I will do, I will start listening to an event that will be raised by the select element. Which event in this case I will be listening to? On change. So on change, I will run some function when this event is raised. So this function, I will call it handle region change. Okay? And then basically take this one and come here. To keep it simple, I will be kind of putting the script in the same page, but later on I will kick it out and link it to here, similar to what we did for CSS, if you remember. Okay, but to keep it simple for now, I'll keep everything here. So I'll have a function. This is the name of this function. And basically, this function, when it is raised, the browser will give me automatically a very important object, which is called event. This event has a lot of information about this event that just happened, which is the onChange event. Okay, so I'll take this event. It will be parameter to my function. And all I am doing now is basically, if I go here and say region, sorry. So what I will do here, I will declare a variable const. I will call it region. Region will be equal to event.target.value. And what this is really doing is just the target is the maf'ul bih, is the element that raised the event, and the value is the current value of that element. Okay. So what I will be doing here, I will just do for now. I'll just do console.log, and I will log this region. That's it. Okay. So let me now go here, refresh, go to my inspector, go to the console, take a look at this. Whenever I change, let me just extend this one. Whenever I change the region, I get the selected region. So I had achieved the first goal, which is programmatically getting the region that was selected by the user. And how did I achieve this programmatically? By listening to this onChange event. This onChange event will be raised and will be giving me the event object. The event object has a lot of information. One of it, important in this case, is event.target.value, and this will give me the value that was selected by the user. What's the next step now? Yeah, it's go to the web API and get the countries of that selected region. Okay, so to do this, the browser has a built-in API called fetch that will allow me to go to a particular URL and fetch the data from that URL. Now, in our case, what is the URL we will be visiting? Is this URL. And by the way, this last part of the URL is parameter. It's parameter. It can change. So let me just copy this one. And basically what I'll be doing here, I'll create a variable const. Basically, I will call it URL, and it will be equal to this. This is my URL, but this part is dynamic, so it will be the dollar this region. Yes? Now, what do I do with this URL? I use it to make a remote call to this web API using fetch. Here's fetch, and here's the URL that I will be fetching from. Now, fetch is by design an asynchronous function. We already discussed this. Yeah. Whenever we talk to an external resource, we don't wait for it. We call it, and later on the results will come back. So this is an asynchronous function. So for me to get the results, I will say here const response equal await. Remember this, yeah? Because I said here await, this will become automatically an async. Yeah, so I get the response. There's one more step, const. This is my data here. It will be response.json. The response has a lot of stuff, including the header and other things, but I just want to grab the JSON coming from this response. And this is also an asynchronous function, so I have to do wait. Basically, now I have retrieved the data from this remote web API. To prove that everything is working, I will log to the console what I received. Okay, so let me go back here refresh, then select Africa, you get here all the African countries here. And for each country, the details of that country. Okay, super simple. All I'm using is the fetch API. It's a fetch function. I give it the URL, get the response, and then grab the body of the response using response.json, and then log in this to the console. What is now the next step? Of course, I'm not expecting my users to go to the console and see the data. So what's the next step I will do? Show it on the page. Show it on the page. Okay, so to show this on the page, what I will do here, let's just keep it simple. I'll make it as a UL, an unordered list, and every country will be a list item. So all I'm doing, this is the lucky element that will receive all the countries. So what I will do, I'll give it a name, and I will call it here countries. I have to give it an ID for me to be able to grab it from JavaScript, to be able to get a reference to it from JavaScript. So the way, and this brings me to a very important concept, which I will explain shortly. Very important concept, which is called the DOM, or the Document Object Model. I will explain more next time, but for now, I just want to give you the big idea. So when I request particular resource, let's say in this case an HTML page, so the HTML page will come to the browser, and basically it will come as a string, as a plain text. It will come as a string. Of course, string, you can't do much about string. You can maybe get the length, maybe replace. String is not a programmer-friendly data structure. So the first thing the browser does, it takes this string and converts it to a tree. The root of the tree is, of course, HTML, and then here the body, and so on. Here is the head, and then here you might have H1, you might have a div, and so on. So basically it converts the HTML, textual HTML, to a tree. And what do we call this tree that gets generated by the browser? The DOM. This is a very, very important object that gets auto-created by the browser. And what do we use this DOM for? Is to reach out to get one of the elements of the page, maybe change it, maybe make it invisible, change its style, play with the DOM. So in JavaScript, one of the roles of the JavaScript on the client side is to query and update the DOM. Okay, so let me show you. So what I'm doing here, the DOM is available in this built-in object in the browser called document. And what I want to do now, I want to go to this DOM, which is in this object called document, and I want to grab query selector. I want to grab this element. Here is the element I want to grab. And this element will be nothing but basically, what is it? Countries, unordered list. So this element will be countries unordered list. And what I will do with this, what do you think? What I will do now? So this one is a list. So I will loop through this list, create a list item for each of the countries, and then inject them into this list. Unordered list. So here is how I will do it, the way I will do it. So I will go to data. If I want to make it more meaningful, I can refactor this and rename it to, let's say, countries. This is just to make it more meaningful. I go to these countries and do for each. This will give me for each country in the countries. For each country, what I will do here const list item equal. So every country will become a list item. I close the list item here. And then inside, what I will do here, c.name. If I wish, of course, I have to do the dollar. This one. So this is grabbing the name from the country. And also just I will also grab the capital. Okay. Now, once I do this, capital. Once I'm finished with this, what I will do here, I will take this one. Yeah, just a second. Let me finish and I will explain it. Plus equal list item. I will explain this shortly. So first of all, before I go into this loop, I will clear the contents of this list item and then fill it up with the new list. So let me try it and then I will explain what's going on. Let me first make sure it's working. Okay, just a second. Just give me a chance and I will explain it. Here it is. Is it working? It is working. Okay, so let me explain what's going on. Okay, so up to here, we understand what's going on. We went to the web API, we grabbed the countries. Then here, what are we doing? We went to the DOM and grabbed the countries and ordered list element. Why did we grab this one? This countries and ordered list? To modify, to inject the countries inside that list. Then, our countries, what I did first, because maybe there are some countries in the past, so I cleared them. So here is how I changed the inner HTML of that element. I cleared it, and then I looped through the countries. Each country will become a list item. And then what I did with the list item, I start injecting it into the inner HTML. Each time, I'm not overriding the inner HTML, otherwise I will just get the last country. Each time I'm adding a new country to that inner HTML. At the end of the day, I will get my list. Super simple and super easy. Yes, please.
What does inner HTML refers to in the HTML page?
Okay, very good. So you can see here, let me just show you here. Let me show you. So if I go here, let me show you const, and I will go for, what is it? An ordered list, just to keep it simple. And I will do here document dot query selector. So I am querying the DOM. I'm asking the DOM, please go through the DOM and find me an element named countries. Yes? Here's my DOM. Now, this DOM has so many properties. Here's the DOM element, which is UL. In this case, it gives me all this stuff. Yeah? Programmatically, if I go UL dot inner HTML, I will get all these list items. This is the inner, one of the properties of the element. If I go inner HTML equal hello, you will get hello. So basically you use the inner HTML property of the element to either read the child element of that element or replace it. Very common property we use to manipulate the DOM. So in JavaScript, 90% of the code you will be doing in JavaScript. Three major scenarios. You might be listening to some events. When those events happen, you do some action. Such as in our scenario, we listened to the onChange event, and then we went to the web API, grabbed the countries, and updated the page. Yes? Another one, you might be using JavaScript on the client side. You might be using it to do web API calls, as I showed you. You might also use it to basically search elements on the DOM and then do some change to them. Maybe you change their inner HTML, maybe you change their color, maybe you hide them and you show them, and so on. Okay? So basically, in a general term, you are manipulating the DOM. At the end of the day, you are either reading or writing to the DOM. That is the major role of JavaScript on the client side. Is clear so far? Okay, so how do we interact with web API from JavaScript? Using the fetch API, which is built in the browser. So what I showed you here so far is using the fetch API to read, to do which verb? The get verb, to do the get verb. But fetch API is not limited to get verb. you can use it for all other verbs, including post, put, delete, and other verbs. Okay, so now let me show you a running example, and maybe next time, inshallah, I will explain further. So let me just show you a running example. Okay, so I'll go here. You can see here, if you remember from last time, in the demos of last time, we had something like this. We had this API that we created, heroes. It gives you the list of heroes. You can also add, update, delete. How did we test it, the add, update, delete? Using Postman. Of course, we are not going to give Postman to our users and get them to do that. We have to provide them a nice user interface to do this, okay? So this is the nice user interface I'm providing them. I'm getting the list of of heroes. I can click, change the hero, submit. I can also delete if I wish. I can add a new hero. This is a test. Submit. A new hero is added there. I can update it. As you can see here, I can delete it if I wish. So this is very, very common. Here I'm dealing with heroes. It could be jobs, it could be books, it could be any resource. Very common API. If you understand this example, you already understood 90% of the cases we use on the data-driven website. We have some resource and we are manipulating these resources. Either we add in, updating, or deleting. Most commonly, this is the most common scenario that we do it. So for get, you already got the idea from the countries we just saw. Now let me show you how we use fetch for posting, putting, and deleting. So here it is. So I will go to this index.html. By the way, once my JavaScript becomes quite large, what I'm doing here, I took the JavaScript, kicked it out to a separate file. In this case, what's the name of the file? Index.js. Index.js, and then in the script tag, instead of putting my script inside the script tag, I am basically referring to it in the source attribute. Yes, and if I jump there, if I do control and click there, I jump to this. Now have a look at this. I just want to show you. Here is the here is the API to get, to add, update, and delete. And to get, of course. Here is if I want to get all the heroes. Here is my URL. I call the fetch asynchronously. And then once the fetch comes back, I return the response.json. This one, if I want to grab the one particular hero, not all the heroes. So I go for API/heroes/ the ID that was passed here. And then I do fetch and then return response.json. Now, here is the add. Take a look at the add. In the add, I will be sending the object, the new object, to this URL. And then, using the fetch, by default, when you just call fetch URL, which verb will be used by default? The get verb. Now, sometimes in this case, for example, I cannot use get verb. I have to use post verb. So what I do here, I pass the URL and then pass an object that configures this fetch call. It configures it. So it says, this object says to the fetch, oh, by the way, when you make this call, this fetch call, which method should you use? Post. And by the way, tell the server, be nice to the server and tell the server that you are sending them a JSON document. How do we tell the server that we are sending them a JSON document? By adding a header with this header. It's called content type application/JSON. And then in the body, what do I place in the body of the request? Stringify of the object that is passed as parameter to this. So I try to do this. Hopefully everything will go okay. Otherwise, I will console log the error. Are you following? It's clear what's going on here. So I'm using the same API fetch, the same function fetch, but this time using the verb post and passing a header to the server to say, I am sending you JSON document, and here is the JSON document. Okay. Now, if I want to do update, very super similar, exactly the same as add, except in this case, I'm using which verb? Put instead of post.
And adding the slash hero.
Yes, thank you. And here I am in the URL, I am passing the ID of the hero to be updated. This is a good design. Yeah. So I'm not in here because I don't know the ID. When I'm adding, I am calling the root URL of the resource, which is /heroes. But in updates, I am passing the actual ID because I already know it. Now for delete, super easy again. Exactly the same, except here the method I'm using is delete. And of course in delete there is no need for a body. The ID is enough. And the server side will receive this ID and go ahead and delete the hero. And